Welcome to the audiobook of The Illusion of Us, The Suppression and Evolution of Human Consciousness. Chapter 1. What is consciousness? For centuries, the question of what consciousness is has been one of the greatest ponderings of the human mind. Most of society shies away from even bringing up this taboo subject through fear of mockery and ridicule. How many classes were taught in school that dealt with deep, expansive thought and the origins of consciousness? The greatest lie that has ever been orchestrated is the illusion of what human beings really are and the truth behind our divine consciousness. The Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu once said, "The key to growth is the introduction of higher dimensions of consciousness into our awareness." By seeking out the true origins of consciousness, a person leads down the pathway towards understanding the very framework of the universe itself. The great search for seeking the individual truths to our identity lie within our conscious expansion. That is why such great lengths have been taken in order to keep it secret and hidden from us for thousands of years. There is an awakening of consciousness occurring within humanity that is spreading across all corners of the world. Just as the ancient Mayans predicted, society has reached a time when the veil of illusion binding our consciousness within the chains of its own awareness are finally beginning to crumble all around us. The famed philosopher Socrates and an inspired pupil Plato became powerful voices of deciphering this illusion that has been perpetrated on humanity for centuries. They realized the importance of what truth represented in our society and how false information has the ability to define our conscious reality for us. Both Socrates and Plato understood the power behind words, and that only by searching within oneself can the absolute truths finally be revealed. They believed that most people are too easily misled by false information, and that political leaders should be chosen according to their understanding of the absolute truths of life, derived from the fundamentals of philosophy. The practice of philosophy is rooted in answering life's greatest questions, which can only be found through conscious expansion. The reason for this unique style of learning is that the truths which govern everything in the universe will always stay constant and remain genuine for all of time. Hidden deep inside our consciousness, those truths are desperately waiting to be heard. So then, we must ask the question, what is absolute truth? Absolute truth is that which cannot be refuted or disproved when viewed through the lens of a rational, objective mind. Plato firmly believed that absolute truth was so fundamentally important that the word itself should be only written with a capital T. I only wish to continue on his great legacy he left behind. The fundamental secret behind always arriving at truth is by viewing information strictly from the perspective of an objective observer. Once an individual begins this journey of discovering truth, they will quickly recognize the pattern laid out before them to follow. Like a scavenger hunt for knowledge, each piece fits into a running timeline which chronicles the story of all existence in the universe and the integral connections they each have to one another. The most appropriate place to start when traveling down this road of truth is by explaining that every human being has a different level of consciousness. These various levels of conscious awareness directly translate into the ability for a person to comprehend complex concepts and the bigger picture at hand for nonlinear thinking. That means that for some people, based on their unique development skills and capacity for learning, will simply never be able to understand what I'm talking about. Those individuals are not less important or dumb, but are simply a byproduct of the hostile environment to which our consciousness can advance itself. By becoming consciously aware, it means that the individual has made the intention known within them to follow a certain path in life. Instead of being distracted by that which derails our development, we can each consciously choose to forge a new path for ourselves. We are all given the choice of freedom whenever we want it, but no matter how much convincing information is hurled at a person, it is the individual who must ultimately decide on their own expansion. In tackling such a massive and almost impossible topic to measure and prove, I would like to start by emphasizing, please be objective with everything in your life. Do not believe these words because they are written. Instead, contemplate on them and see if you find truth in them yourself. The goal of this book is to expand your conscious awareness and introduce you to a secret knowing that has been hiding in plain sight all along. I do not pretend to have all the answers, but I feel very humbled to have the ability to comprehend many of the clues left behind for us and fit them together into a timeline for humanity. My only intention with these words is to continue the ancient traditions passed down for the preservation of truth. I seek to peel back the veil that has encased humanity in the very illusion of itself, and expose the framework for the most incredible story ever told. But beyond the fact that this information should be known, is a stark realization that it actually must be known, for the time of ignorance is quickly running out for us. I write this book as more of a deep conversation between friends, sitting around a flickering fire deep in the wilderness somewhere, void of all distractions. I have chosen a different kind of style, and one that I hope flows better and does not distract or bore the individual by dragging out repetitive themes. With so much misinformation constantly poisoning us from all directions, it can be very difficult to figure out what is real and what is a distraction of the truth. I hope you sift through my words and separate the beneficial pieces for yourself. This book's only goal is to expand your consciousness to a new possibility and maybe even a new reality. Come with me through the power of words on this journey of self-awareness and discovery of who we really are. By the time you reach the end of this book, I promise you will never look at reality in this world the same way again. The mysteries around consciousness and the universe have been the greatest fascinations of my lifetime. As far back as I can remember, the concepts always left my head in the clouds, deep in thought, wondering if the very world around me was merely an illusion. I simply could not accept the sad and simple, unconnected narrative being provided. That deep connection to all living things can be heard and even felt in the haunting cry of a loon or the buzzing of a bee pollinating the flowers all around me. That interconnectedness and hidden purpose for all living things constantly spoke to me through my life, through quiet whispers and subliminal thoughts. It wasn't until years later that I was finally able to hear it and understand what was being said all along. With all of this knowledge and truth inside, I have felt a deeply pressing need to tell this incredible story of us and share with as many people as possible. Terence McKenna elegantly wrote, "You are an explorer and you represent our species, and the greatest good you can do is bring back a new idea, because our world is endangered by the absence of good ideas. Our world is in crisis because of the absence of consciousness." Those words echo through the fabric of my being and speak to humanity's continuous struggle with its own realization. We are living during such a pivotal time for the future of the human species that our continued existence will be determined by our ability to expand our consciousness. Growing up in a world where we are taught that being different is a flaw, there is a great need to conform with others. This thought process represents a reality which is manufactured for humanity that greatly benefits a uniformed way of thinking. An excellent indicator to help explain the levels of consciousness that a varied different people can have is through their imagination potential. Imagination is what drives creativity and stimulates unique thought. The process of imagining allows the user to create a virtual world of their own, and by doing so, assists in expanding the mind's potential. Those who find themselves constantly lost in imagination are often the very same ones who have a higher capacity for understanding alternative thinking. It is to these expansive thinkers that I speak to most. Albert Einstein once said, "The real sign of intelligence isn't knowledge, but imagination." Some of us know who we are already, but there are many others who are just waking up to the realization behind the expansiveness of their mind. It isn't until the individual fully embraces and understands their uniqueness that they can reach their highest potential as a human species. The human brain and consciousness are what determines this reality for us. The way we view life, death, and every action we take is defined by how we view our reality. Every morning we wake up to a vibrant reality of colors and frequencies that make up this three-dimensional world. The human brain, containing billions of neural connections, is receiving information through the retinas in the eyes, which is then being projected by the brain. We all contain a unique human experience that is being determined by all the decisions we have made in our life and the associations that are bound to them. That means that each person has a slightly different version of this reality. Because this version of reality we live in can be so unique, there has been a long-standing attempt to define it for us. By defining our collective reality to what suits the needs of that predetermined model for society, the result has caused humanity to become severed off from the important connections back to the planet. This has led to the collective hijacking of human consciousness, where our minds have literally been stolen from us to exist in nothing more than an illusion of itself. What is real? That question has driven many who seek it to the very edge of insanity. Without a solid framework to fall back on, some minds have found themselves in a complete freefall with no bottom in sight. Realizing that reality projected before them is nothing more than an illusion, it often leads emptiness and anger in its wake, unless a spiritual connection can be made. This transitional point of awareness must be followed up with the understanding of who we really are and how we define ourselves in this physical world. If certain steps are not followed in reforming our perceptions of reality and self, the person can be left in a scattered state of extreme fear and confusion. These teachings are intended to gently guide your conscious expansion while also helping to ground you and connect to a higher purpose and design. I want to strongly emphasize that this mental transition is one of the hardest accomplishments a person can do in their lifetime. Carl Jung speaks to these challenges when he says, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own soul. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Our culture considers the most impressive accomplishments of humanity to be those of pure physical willpower and prides themselves in the conquering of the world's tallest peaks and deepest oceans. The truth is, the greatest journey we can make is within our own mind through conscious expansion. That is what ultimately drives the evolution of a species beyond the simple domination of its resources. Without conscious expansion, a developing species will either destroy itself through war or be forced to leave their dying planet in search of other means of survival. I strive to connect the truths of our history as well as reality and to avoid so much of the misinformation that constantly distract us from every direction. The way human beings discern reality is defined by how they perceive associated information in their brains. So we must understand that our minds can be controlled through the manipulation of that incoming information. When you begin to look at things from the outside as an observer, the very reality you thought was real turns out to be nothing more than a mirage of manipulation. What if the very perception of who we are and our true history was completely created to control us? Through the use of materialism, money, fear, and predefining our own existence, most of humanity walks around in an artificial illusion of reality. This illusion has taken over everything in our world. It is the illusion of what consciousness really is, and our role in the universe. The way that this is achieved is by making us believe that consciousness is created by the brain, and thus, that we are nothing more than an intelligent, evolved animal, struggling to survive here. This misconception is fueled through a state of constant war and domination over remaining resources from our dying planet. The hardest part of this perceptual learning to fully grasp is how exactly reality has been stolen from us. This ancient heist of our consciousness that began thousands of years ago has exponentially manifested into the current model of our slumbering reality. Imagine how you might feel from seeing a shimmering, snow-capped mountain in the distance, or a homeless man sleeping in a dirty alleyway. To some they see beauty and sadness, and others, maybe nothing really at all. That truth governs how the world operates and what becomes reality. If a certain reality is determined to be more appropriate for large populations of people, that reality can be created out of laws, money, history, and society. Reality is defined for us only by what we are told is real by those in authoritative roles. All of our perceptions of that reality are based on what we learn in school and from society around us. But those who have found themselves standing on a distant mountain, staring into the heavens, and wondering if there isn't more to life than what we've been told, these words will resonate within you and spark a feeling inside that's been there all along. This control of reality information is fed to the general population from within governments and the heads of mainstream religions. This is accomplished through the trickling down of misinformation manipulated through the teaching of incorrect human history and understanding consciousness. Generation upon generation, the truth and connection to this planet have been slowly eroded from us and nearly lost to time. All of our egotistical accomplishments have forced a false sense of entitlement over the earth. Before long, the majority of people simply do not see beauty any longer, and to them, it is just background while they move to their next destination. Pulled down by the weight of this emptiness, our childlike wonder of the world, like the light of a candle, barely flickers any longer and threatens to go out. There are many who have shattered this perception and are no longer bound by its restraint. Like finding a hole in the fence, those individuals have broken out of the enclosure and run away from the herd, to find themselves in a place where their consciousness is no longer confined by control and manipulation. Far away from the sickness that corrupts our mind, that true reality of this world awaits us, hidden beneath layers of our own ego. Peeling back these layers reveals a spectacular world all around us, where our every action is intrinsically connected to our own development and feeds into the incredible running narrative of the entire universe. Brian Cox said, "We are the cosmos made conscious, and life is the means by which the universe understands itself." In the end, we must ask ourselves, what part did we play in this story? This information can be quite startling for many, and even scary, but the truth is, there's nothing to fear. Fear is the leftover remnant of the ancient left brain and is not actually real. We manifest fear based on the stimuli around us and let it determine our thoughts. When we are able to confront and conquer our greatest fears, we will truly be free. Later in the book, you will read about how fear has been used as the ultimate weapon against conscious expansion. Humans dominated by fear will revert back to their primitive survival state since they feel their life is in jeopardy. The conscious evolution of our species has been held hostage by this model of control through fear. Humanity is tormented by its past and allows it to dictate its very future. It is only when we see that fear is merely an illusion that we will be finally free and move beyond its hold over us. We must question everything in our reality and wake up to the atrocities that have been perpetrated on our society. There is a desperate race to learn this truth before our species annihilates ourselves through this derived confusion. Once one breaks free of this illusion, they find a hidden world exists full of light and humbling amazement. Modern society rarely even considers the fact that we are on a planet flying through space, with billions of other suns and galaxies in an almost infinitely expansive universe. Even the stars have become simply backdrop to people who rarely look up at them any longer as they pass by underneath. We have become a society that worships celebrities and makes fun of high intelligence. Everything is geared towards keeping us in a small box of thinking. Meanwhile, we are left in an empty world, slaving for money and following an oligarchy system of control. It makes me cry when I think about what has happened to human beings, as I try to comprehend all the stolen lives that never really lived. I see the potential of what is and what has happened in striking contrast to one another. Through understanding what consciousness really is, it becomes a powerful tool and means of waking up. Let me take you down a far different path, to a highly guarded place I like to call the real reality. They call this thinking traveling down the rabbit hole, because once you get a glimpse of the truth, you yearn for more, and it expands your world deeper than you ever thought possible. The most difficult step to take in discovering truth really is the first one. Staring into the abyss of information that challenges the very paradigm of our reality can be very difficult and uncomfortable to undertake. The ability to break free of all of the lies and deceit that have been perpetrated on humanity revolves around the individual's reliability on the system itself. The more they are dependent on it for happiness and stability, the more difficult it will be to let go. Once you do finally take that difficult first step and begin to piece together the incredible story of now, it becomes very difficult to go back to your previous mindset because your subconscious already knows the truth. Through learning and expanding conscious awareness to new information in the world around us, the ability to comprehend complex ideas increases dramatically. That is why so many people who have a lack of information simply cannot comprehend or understand this. The human brain is capable of storing and understanding tremendous amounts of information. Our organic bodies are housing the most complex thing we know of in the universe. Human beings only use about 10% of their brain capacity at one time, showing the true potential of what lies ahead for our evolution. If we were to contrast the brain size and complexity from our past ape ancestors to that of modern Homo sapiens, the comparison of neurological activity wouldn't even be remotely similar. That simple view is precisely how our mindset has been locked in a dark cave of its own Darwinism, by perceiving our very identity as nothing more than an evolved ape. The idea that the human brain simply doubled its size over a very short time period due to simple evolution is illogical when looking at all the evidence. We must separate ourselves out from this primitive viewpoint in order to fully see the truth in our identity. This incredible gift of consciousness, endowed within humanity, allows our unique ability to perceive everything in the universe as well as where we fit in ourselves. Without a manual to come with this incredibly powerful organic computer, we simply flail about, being influenced by anything shiny that entices our thirst for pleasure. On this path of conscious evolution, we must first answer the question that has held us back for so long. What is reality? We are here together to try and shed light on that very question. Society heavily promotes the premise that the physical world is a great feat to conquer in this life, yet it is the journey through self that has the greatest rewards. We have been steered away from emotion, because through emotion we can connect to our highest state of consciousness and discover truth. That severed connection is what denies our very expansion. Now you can imagine this dissociation with reality may cause society to act a certain way. If the burger flipper realizes he actually is his own multidimensional consciousness that resides on the astral plane, he may choose different career choices. Simply thinking about consciousness existing outside your brain is expansion in itself. That is where I want you to wander to, and dip a toe into the waters of our divine connection to all life itself. Human consciousness exists on a multidimensional sphere, simply being housed in this organic body. We are merely receivers of information, residing in this three-dimensional physical world, constantly searching for the right path to take in our story. Only through experience are we able to decide for ourselves what is real and what is a suppression of consciousness. As crazy as this information may sound to some, think for a moment about the five senses we regularly use. If we were to try and perceive something outside those five senses, we simply would be unable to even know it was there. The same principle is true for dimensions. We know of a three-dimensional world because that is all we can see. It is the world around us that we ever increasingly take for granted. Understand that right now, quantum physics dictates that there are likely more than 10 different dimensions. Try and think about that for a moment and let it sink in. Very quickly you realize that we live in a very small mindset world, which revolves around fighting over frivolous material things as nothing more than a clever distraction from the truth. When I emphasize that consciousness exists on another dimensional plane, it must be viewed as the true identity of the individual, not the physical body. That is the great illusion of us, and the vice that holds us firmly in this false perception. You must see consciousness as an incredible gift and the most humbling of experiences. That connection to the higher self has been severed through the manipulation of our identity and thus forming an artificial reality. Human beings hold the ability to unlock our true potential through conscious expansion and secrets within our DNA. That is the reason that our awakening to truth has been fought over and guarded for so long from us. All of our history of hopes, dreams, ideas, inventions, and even deepest love all come from conscious expansion. It is what carries us forward and drives us to be better. Only through the duality of learning is this possible, which is what binds all of this together. You must experience the good and the bad, and then choose who you identify with and follow that path inside you. That path can either lead you to enlightenment and connection, or illusion and sadness. This isn't a religious choice, or some new age cult following, but the essential decision we must make within ourselves. But most importantly, to appreciate the good, you must first know the bad. The more you look, the more you see everything is governed by this teaching duality world. That is how we define our true identity through consciousness, grown through the experiences and learning we get to have in this beautiful place called Earth. All of these interwoven and connected experiences contribute to the entire narrative that is our story of humanity. Written in the pages of time, we forge our future based on our past and hopefully learn those mistakes. Driven by confusion, greed, lust, and ego, we dominate and destroy the only home we've ever known. With the fear of death always ruling our decisions, we squander away everything and care little about the future or the consequences of our actions. Very quickly you begin to see that the illusion of humanity is merely a tool for controlling our consciousness. Once the veil of darkened truth is lifted, all that remains is indescribable beauty and connectedness to all things. In order to exist there, our minds need some training first to break free of the prison that binds it. Continue on this story with me as we explore consciousness further and dive into the incredible history of humanity. I know that so many of these words speak to something deep down inside of us, hidden away until the right time that it can be heard. This book is for all of those inquisitive minds who have a quench for truth and knowledge and simply do not accept the represented reality around them. Deeper and deeper we will travel, following the breadcrumbs of truth, till we can finally understand the greatest story ever told.